That's the good stuff right here. Hard, soft literature. Yeah. I mean, sort of, kind of. I tell you what, I'll check it out. You know, I'm not normally one to destroy books, but I'm just kind of baked for it. Hiya folks, Fruit and Doggy here to do another book discussion, and today I'll be discussing Where Truth Lies by Christiane Higan. It's a little funky to pronounce. But anyways, this was published in 2006. Page length is right around 380. And this is kind of, as the title would imply, a bit of a mystery, a little bit of a suspense. It's fairly straightforward, though. Excuse me. And starting off with what I liked about this book, I appreciated that I thought the mystery was well written. It's, you know, the concerns of the book focus on one side. I'm sorry. I'm jumping the shark. It's been so while since I recorded these. I forgot that I read the back cover first. Beneath the small town charm is a big time secret. Museum curator Grace McKenzie is shocked when she received word that her ex-fiancé, Stephen Hatfield, has been murdered. In his will, Stephen has left her his art gallery in New Hope, Pennsylvania. Anticipating that she would turn down the bequest, he asked that she spend a week at the gallery before making her final decision. Motivated by a sense of duty to a man she once loved, Grace agrees to go to New Hope for 1 week. She isn't the only person drawn to the small town. FBI agent Matt Baxter has returned to his hometown for one reason only, to clear his father of a bogus murder charge. While he and Grace seek answers, they discover that beneath the surface of this charming, peaceful town lies an old secret a few of its citizens would rather keep buried. And when their search takes an unexpected turn, they have only hours to find out where the truth lies or be buried with it. And kind of going on a different direction from how I was starting before, I will say that there's going to be some spoilers. This book does follow some typical plot devices of these books. So the two individuals and names in particular, the FBI agent Matt, and then the ex-fiancé who's following up on her murdered ex-lover, excuse me, they do become involved. They do develop a potential love interest, and are they going to get together? Are they not? Ooh, there's chemistry. I mean, cliche as cliche can be. Especially, what I find especially interesting is that whenever these sort of potential romances are starting to kind of spark up, it always seems that the two express interest, but they hold back. They're reserved. They don't just charge forward. They hold back a little bit. I don't know. I think it's just part of the dance of these sorts of books. It's got to pull you along a little bit. This is also a little bit of the suspense. Well, I think for some readers, not so much for me. It's like, okay, I know where they're going. It's cute. That's nice. Great. And the book does spend enough time to develop the relationships between Grace, some of the other townspeople that she meets, that she develops a few friendships and bonds with. But even though I think it does a decent job developing those relationships, her trying to work out what's been going on with her ex-fiancé, what was going on with the gallery, who might have had a motive for wanting to end his life, that mystery element, the murder mystery, stays prominent. And I think, you know, whenever you're reading a book of this nature that's centered around a crime or a mystery, it's important not to let the day-to-day relationships become foreground material. They should always be a little bit more towards the background. Stuff to kind of change up the pace, a little bit of fluff and filler, so it's not just checking out crime scenes. How to put it? The audience, the reader, needs a little bit of breathing time to pull back from those suspenseful, perhaps really dry, investigative moments. And those are what I'd say is the positive aspects of the book. As I was reading through it, as I was learning more and kind of making some predictions. Some of them were right, some of them were a little bit off or a little screwy or close but not quite. I liked that. I liked the way the book kind of foreshadowed certain things, but it didn't make anything too obvious. Nothing was so clear, so transparent that it's like, oh, I've got this. I nailed it. I know this 100%, no doubt. I'm just going through the motions at this point. Excuse me. Where I think the book faltered is that as a story summary says on the back of the book, there is a years old issue that took place, an event that took place, a long buried secret that there are people who don't want it to come to light. And the problem is that there's quite a few people that wind up actually being involved in it. And in order for all of the events that transpire in the story the way that they do, it requires quite a few people to be scumbags, to be unrepentant, dishonest. I mean, the dishonest part isn't so much of a nagging issue, but it really requires some individuals to be rather heartless, to be just straight out cruel, uncaring, callous, and uncouth. I don't want to point out specifics. I don't want to point out even just the roles, because that would really tip the hat as to who did what or the fact that they were involved. But another way to put it is, I'll put it like this. There are basically, let me count, 2 people for certain, 2 more, another one, the victim. I thought I miscounted. I thought there was one other person I was trying to remember. Depending on how you count, like if you include the victim, if you include the person who took the fall even though they were innocent, etc., 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 there were roughly 5 to 7 people involved in this singular event. And the truth could have come to light sooner, which would have been a way for many people in the community to have closure, that they could have been able to move on with their lives. A few people, their lives could have been not revived, could have been not just improved. It's a little bit stronger than improved. Their lives could have been enriched. If it weren't for the actions of a few people, then their lives could have been enriched. They could have had a second chance at life. And because of the actions of a few handful of people, it's stolen away from them. And it's only by the time the book ends that any sort of justice in those situations and issues can be meted out. So you do get, I'm going to call this a bit of a spoiler, but a non-spoiler, because again, when you're dealing with a murder mystery, there are certain tropes, there are certain things you expect. There is a happy ending. It's like, oh man, what? You mean the bad guys get caught, and the amateur detective and the actual police force, they actually figure everything out and they're 100% correct, and like, yeah, all the stereotypical stuff. And I have to admit, I think the tone was relatively well done throughout the book. Kind of a balance again of being somber and serious as it needed to be, some breathing space with some comedy, some levity, but in parts of the climax, I felt like they maybe took it a little too much with the levity. They weren't giving it enough seriousness. And, you know, I would say that's a little bit of a personal judgment, some personal preferences. I think some people could read the ending of the book and it's like, with everything so dark and with some of the awful, wicked choices people made that were so selfish and horrendous, that tone shift was appreciative. It's like, oh man, we needed some levity. But considering what took place and all the years of unmeted justice, unjustness of it, I think just doesn't quite fit. It's not 100%. It's a little discordant. It doesn't quite fit for me. But overall, I do recommend this book. I think it's worth reading. It does get, again, just not exactly spoilers, but with murder mysteries, they do sometimes have kind of a darker sinisterness to them. Well, I mean, it's a murder. You expect that to an extent. But yeah, this one I think especially hits some dark areas. So if you're even more so on the lighthearted, uplifting style, then this would probably be too dark for your preferences. So that's my overall conclusion. I'd say it's worth reading. It balances things fairly well. It wasn't so like, oh, this isn't even worth reading. It's so transparent, so clear. Anybody with turning half their brain off could figure out what's going on. So I think it did a good job. And but I suppose that's going to be all for now. I'm just repeating the fact that I think you should read it. But anyways, I hope to see you around later, folks. And as always, fruit and doggy. Yes, there really is nothing quite like curling up with a fine piece of literature, if you know what I mean.